Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Michael sent me a note about a story widely reported in the Kansas part of the country. But we've talked about civil asset forfeiture. Civil asset forfeiture, again, briefly, is the idea that you encounter the police, they see that you got some money or other valuables, and they say, hey, where'd you get that from? And if you don't give them an explanation they like, they just take it and say, well, we think it's the product of some kind of criminal activity. Therefore, if you want your money back, you got to sue us for it. And this is a problem across the country. Some states have outlawed it recently, but it's still a problem at the federal level, and it's still a problem in most states. And it leads to all kinds of other weird problems, not the least of which is it incentivizes the police to take your stuff. So they get to keep the money, or much of it, once they seize it. So, of course, it's a reward for them. Then the weird part is what happens to the money after they take it. So here's the headline. Kansas agencies lost $72,000. 4 years of probing, few answers. John Hanna wrote for the Associated Press. And yes, they lost $72,000. They lost it. But the $72,000 that they lost belonged to somebody else, but it had been forfeited through civil asset forfeiture. And that's the problem, is that these agencies get this money, and they're basically allowed to do with it what they want. Sometimes they got to give some of it to somebody else, but not back to the owner. But they often split it with another law enforcement agency or something. But let's face it, if you are a police department and you bring in a bunch of money and you know you get to keep a bunch of it, and you basically got it for free, you didn't have to work for it. So how seriously do you take how you handle it? And isn't it really basically just a free-for-all? Like once the money gets back to the station, isn't it like, hey, every man for himself? So sometime after January 2017, there had been a drug bust then near I-70's main exit for Dwight Eisenhower's boyhood Kansas home. $72,000 in cash seized by the local sheriff's department disappeared. It was lost. The state has been investigating the Dickinson County Sheriff's Department for close to 4 years, with two officials saying in court filings that a fear of retribution among department employees had slowed the progress. So the implication is that some of them know what happened to the money, but they don't want to talk because they'll get in trouble. A 3-term sheriff lost last year's primary decisively to a former longtime officer who told voters the department was falling apart. So this apparently has worked its way into the local politics where people are like, wait a second. They seize money from people and they lose it. Maybe they need to shake that department up a little bit. The mystery has unfolded amid a national debate over whether law enforcement agencies can too easily seize cash and other assets, often without a criminal investigation. I-70 has long been considered a major drug-running corridor, but of course for law-abiding citizens traveling on that stretch with cash, that's a problem that has nothing to do with drugs. Meanwhile, there's no official explanation for what happened to the cash seized in Dickinson County. Brad Hammond, the county administrator, says, I would like to think that we could get some closure on that. Translating it in English, I'd like to think we could find the money, or at least find out who stole it. Because interestingly enough, when they stole it from the citizen who had it, and then put it in their possession, and someone else stole it, those are both thefts. Now, the first one they can call civil asset forfeiture and probably get away with it. But the second one, no, that's actually a crime in that they can't claim they were civil asset forfeituring the money from the department. Abilene, the county seat with 6,400 people, is about 150 miles west of Kansas City. No criminal charges have been filed over the missing $72,000. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation, or the KBI, closed an inquiry into the former sheriff in October 2019, and the missing funds were fully investigated, according to a spokesperson. So it was fully investigated, but no charges were filed. Yet, in a recent email, the same spokesperson wrote, we have open cases involving Dickinson County Sheriff's Office personnel. So they might still be investigating, but no charges yet. Current Sheriff Jerry Davis cited the KBI's inquiries and declining to answer most questions. The local prosecutor didn't respond to interview requests or emailed questions. Former sheriff and his undersheriff did not respond to social media or email messages. Possible phone numbers for them weren't answered. And so in this beautiful age of social media, in the old days, they had to chase someone down and chase them with a camera going, why won't you talk to us? and now they can reach to him through their Facebook page or their TikTok page. Some details emerged when a lawsuit forced KBI director and general counsel to answer questions in writing in late February. They were defending the KBI's refusal to release records 5 months after a newspaper sued for disclosure. They wanted to get information on what happened to that money. KBI director and the general counsel said officers wouldn't help the KBI if they knew their statements would become public. One deputy was advised by commanding officers that he'd be fired if he spoke about a theft. Any picture of what happened is clouded by separate allegations in early 2017 that a lieutenant improperly borrowed some money, about $25,000, most of it from the property room in the basement. The officer later pleaded guilty to felony theft in a case that has prompted questions about how these people ran their police department. And you have to understand something. The fact that they call it borrowing the money is actually a problem. It wasn't borrowed, it was stolen. And so to say that he had improperly borrowed the money means you're partly buying into his bogus explanation. So if I go into your wallet and borrow some money and you catch me and I go, oh, here, I'll pay you back the money I borrowed. No, that would be theft. That's stolen money. So you have to understand that stuff taken from an evidence room, you can't borrow it. Because I'm sure most of you know this, but if you watch a full-blown criminal trial on television, I'm not talking about a recreation, I'm not talking about a movie, I'm talking about they televise the proceedings. And when there's a witness on the stand and they bring out a piece of evidence, and they're going to get this evidence actually admitted into the trial, okay? So it's been marked, and they go through this whole rigmarole about how you get the evidence into the actual trial, how you get it admitted. And one of the things that happens is a person is on the stand and they'll say, I know what that thing is. I know where it came from. Well, if the crime happened 2 years ago and you're on the stand today, where did this spend the last 2 years? And that chain of custody becomes extremely important because a lot of times the evidence, if it's been tampered with, is no good. Now you might say, but Steve, why would it matter? Because you don't tamper with money, do you? Well, if you borrowed $25,000 and did something with it, when you paid it back, you weren't paying it back with the same money that you borrowed. And although money is fungible, it doesn't work that way with evidence. So for instance, they bring into court and they have a stack of money and they go, this was found in the defendant's car. Let's assume that's important. Say, okay, where did that money spend the last 2 years? Well, it was put in the storage locker on day one. The next day, a guy borrowed the money, and a month later, he replaced the money. Okay, so the money we have in front of us is the money that he replaced it with? Yes. But it's not the money that's found in the car. No, it's not. So it's not actually the evidence anymore, is it? No, it's not. The evidence is gone. So the police officer didn't borrow money, he destroyed evidence. And now I've never gone to a police academy. I haven't even seen the movies. But I know enough about it to understand that when police go through the academy to become a police officer, they're trained in evidence gathering techniques, but also in the chain of custody. And the point is that when you're having someone on trial and they're facing their accusers and everything's due process, and they bring out the evidence against them, it hasn't been tampered with and it hasn't been destroyed or replaced with other evidence. And this is so simple that it almost hurts me to have to explain it. And I understand that many of you know, so you don't need it explained to you in that sense. But here we have a lieutenant improperly borrowed the money. No, the lieutenant improperly destroyed the evidence, removing the evidence from the locker and replacing it with other evidence after he'd been caught. The officer later pleaded guilty to felony theft in a case that's prompted questions. What about destruction of evidence? Isn't that also a crime? Maybe not in Kansas, I don't know. KBI said that sheriff's office asked it in late May of 2017 to investigate the $72,000 missing from its property room. The sheriff has an evidence room in the county courthouse. Dickinson County Commission Chairman Lynn Peterson believes people were satisfied then with the sheriff's leadership and notes that it was the sheriff's office that uncovered the fact that money was missing and started gathering information. I love it when they take credit for catching somebody that's doing something wrong under their direction. But in May of 2018, nearly a year after the sheriff's office sought the help of the KBI, Purvis asked the state agency to investigate, here's the quote, possible evidence destruction and interference with law enforcement by employees of the department. Local officials' requests for KBI investigations were confirmed in a September 2020 letter to the Reflector Chronicle's attorney. The letter, now public because the Open Records lawsuit the newspaper filed days later, wasn't more specific about what they wanted investigated. A KBI agent filed an offense report in October 2018 saying that $72,020 was missing in a potential theft of property or services. The report's front page does not name suspects, and Graham's letter said the KBI spent about 18 months investigating the missing money and more than a year investigating allegations involving these various law enforcement officials. The state found insufficient evidence for charges. So the money disappeared. We know who did it roughly. It was a certain group of people with access to that room. And they know who did it, but they don't want to talk because they'll get in trouble. So $72,000 is missing. It was borrowed. Also involved was Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt's office, which notified Purvis in July 2019 that it wouldn't file criminal misconduct charges in Dickinson County. The letter from the Assistant Attorney General suggested that the case could not be proven to a jury, though an investigation remains open. He questioned local officials' evidence handling policies. He questioned local officials' evidence handling policies. The sheriff's office did have 21 pages of policies, which they are now revising, by the way. 4 items in its courthouse property room, including one that said cash or coins worth more than $100, were to be counted by the deputy who seized the money and a second officer before being sealed in tamper-proof packaging. And of course, what's to keep you from stealing the money that's been packaged in tamper-proof packaging? Because you can just take the money someplace else and remove the packaging after you've borrowed the money. As for the missing cash, the county administrator said it would be nice to get it back. It's money that shouldn't have been wherever it went. Well, yeah, it's stolen money. So the money was stolen. The money was evidence. And it's happened before, apparently. And it's happened again. And again, they look at this and go, well, easy come, easy go. We stole it from them. I can steal it. You can steal it. Well, you get money. And it just seems to be something that negatively affects everything in the system. The idea that you can be pulled over to the side of the road and have your money stolen is a problem. The fact that your money can be in an evidence locker and stolen again is a problem. The fact that money could be seized and kept and then used on stupid stuff like ice machines and popcorn makers is also wrong. I mean, there's just so much craziness around civil asset forfeiture. And underneath all of this story was somebody whose $72,000 was stolen from them at the side of the road or during a raid or something. They found some money, they kept it. And then once they kept it, someone else within the department stole it. And they don't know who did it because the people who know won't talk, So it's a crazy story. I hope they find the money, but I doubt that they will. I hope they catch the guy who stole it the second time. I doubt they will. And I hope the person whose money was seized in the first place gets a court order for the return of the money because they can pay him back with different money. They could. But whether that'll happen or not, I don't know. But the Associated Press ran the story. John Hanna wrote it. Michael sent it to me. Kansas agencies lost $72,000 with 4 years of probing. Few answers. Unbelievable. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. It's all been satirized for your protection.